Hi, I'm Kristen and this is Scrap Fabric Love. And today I'm trying out a new product from LOKliK. At the time of recording, this product's so new, it's only available on a Kickstarter campaign. If you're watching this in the future and it's available for sale elsewhere, I'll put the link in the description box. But first of all, you're probably thinking, what on earth is it and why are you trying it? And I thought that first too when they proposed to send it to me, because it is about painting by numbers. Can you see that? So the idea is that you can take an image, like a photo or some other kind of drawing that you've got from somewhere, and you can have this tool turn it into a paint by numbers. But I don't paint, and this channel's about quilting, so I was like, why are we sending this to me? But then I looked at the details a bit more, and it turns out you can put the paint by number code, like grid thing, that you paint from on fabric. So immediately I thought collage quilting. So I've done one collage quilt on the channel before and another one for my son, but I haven't done a lot of it, but I loved it when I did do it. So I keep meaning to do more. So I thought this was a good opportunity to try a new tool, see if it would help with this, and just have a little play. So let's open it up and see how it works. So the idea is that the physical tool in here works with an AI-powered app that kind of converts your photo to these sort of sketches or areas with the numbers in, so you know what color goes where. That's the idea. So let's see what's inside. Obviously comes with instructions and a whole bunch else is in there. So it comes with paint. I'm not going to use that on the fabric. That's not the idea for me for this project, so I'll set that aside for now. Comes with pens, 3 types of pens. I'll have to read in the instructions when you use which one, but looks like a heat erasable. I don't want that one because I'm going to be using an iron. Gel pen and another heat erasable. So, okay. I'll explain later on in the video why I'm using the pen that I'm going to use for this, but in the meantime, these are the bits that make up the actual tool that draws out the paint by number sketch. Brushes, tape, labels, and canvas. So here's everything that came in the box. I'm going to follow the instructions to put it together, and then we'll see how it works with that app. So assembling the tool was pretty easy. There was basically only 3 steps, I think. There's a little connector you have to connect for the 2 pieces, and then it slots on, put a screw in, put a cover over the screw, and you're done. And then I just have to figure out connecting it to the app. So I set up the app on my Mac, but obviously it's got other formats. And then it asks if you're a beginner or a pro. Obviously I'm a beginner. So I went through and used the little tutorials they had that showed you kind of how you go about setting it all up. And then once you are in the app, there are actually kind of lots of options for different projects. So you could do it for obviously painting on a canvas. You could do it for painting on wood. You could do it for like embroidery projects. And I think greeting cards was another one. But I am going to be trying to use this as a pattern for collage quilting. So that is what I'm going to get on with. Okay, so I've just uploaded this image that I'm going to try and turn into a paint by numbers. If I didn't want to use my own image, there is a whole library in this app. This is all the kind of oil painting ones, but there's all sorts of different things and different themes. You can search by all sorts of stuff in here that you could use. But I just want to do this. And I'm not actually even going to, it's probably going to give me a number for the background here, even though this is transparent. But I really just want this shape, and then I'm going to use the paint by number to create myself a sort of collage applique patch almost, and then I'm going to cut it out and put it on top of something quilted. So that's the idea. Anyway, so I brought in my image, obviously not a real photo, but you could use a real photo. And when you click on the image, so when you don't click on your image, it just looks like this, but when you do click on it, there's these options. And the one that I want for the paint by number is this one that says oil painting. And once you get there, you've got 3 options for like how many sections you want. And you can see how clear or otherwise your image will be as a result, you know, and how many sections you're going to have to fill in my case with fabric, but if you were painting with different colors, right? So I'm going to do easy. So I've clicked that and I'm going to press transfer. Okay, so that looks pretty cool. So you can see it's giving me different little shading. So I'll be able to have fun with different patches of fabric for each of those shades. And that looks complex enough for me, but obviously I could do the medium or the more complex to get more in there, but I'm happy with that. So I'm gonna press apply. And then once I'm back in here, I press this make button. And then the tutorial that I watched in here, which you kind of see when you first start up, says to use the 48 color instead of the 5. I've obviously got more than 5 colors in here, so press that. And then transfer to paint by numbers. And so then it gives me this color guide, so I can download that so that I know which colors go where. If you want to see what the paint by number actually looks like, you press this show outline, and that's going to show me here. So even with the easy one for this particular image, which maybe has a lot of colors, I've got lots of these little patches, so this is going to be fun to do, I think. And some of them are quite small, but that's okay, because I can refer back to this to see which one was supposed to go in there. So, and this is the color guide. Looks like it gives you sort of a color mock-up, and then you've got the paint by number image and the color code, so you know which number points to which. So then when I go to actually do my patches, I'll know which color I meant for which bit. And then here it's saying which kind of material. Now cotton, this is one I added myself, but I'm going to go in and change that. The canvas ones and the stretched canvas were all in there before. So let me just go in here. So I don't want this one. That was the little one I was testing before. So let me go, my materials, go add, right? So I'm going to call it cotton. And the size that I want it to be, so I want it to be pretty much a square. And the maximum on this side seems to be this 11.59, so that's kind of close enough, I guess. There, that's about a square. That's fine. And the thickness for the material, I measured the cotton. It doesn't have any millimeters to it, so I went down to 0. It's hardly even 0.1 of a millimeter. And I don't think you can pick that. I think it goes straight up to 0.5, so that's not right. So I'm doing this, and this is so that I know the distance to put the pen to the paper, or not the paper, the fabric in this case. Okay, so I'll shut that. So, and then I've got to pick it. So cotton, there we go. And then it's telling me here how I can measure the distance for the pen. Okay, so, and then I also have to choose the pen. So there's the heat erasable or the gel pen. Now the heat erasable makes sense if you're worried about not covering the lines with your fabric, but I want to use Fusible to put my little patches in place, which means I'll be heat ironing them down, pressing, right? So that would erase all of the marks that I'm making with this. That's not going to work. So I'm going to use gel pen. And I know that I'll kind of cover the edges, and I'm also going to cut the whole thing out of the fabric that it's on in order to use it as an applique piece, so that's fine. Okay. And then next thing I want to do is preview and make sure I've got my fabric in the right place so that the pen doesn't go off of the space where I have the fabric laid down. So let me do that, and I will come back. So this is the machine with the pen in it, and it's just basically showing me without the pen touching the fabric yet where it's gonna be the furthest most points that it's gonna go, so I can make sure that I've got it in the right place. I made my fabric bigger than what I told the computer just to be sure. So add to task, and it's telling me it's going to take 11 minutes to do. So this is it sped up a bit. It was kind of cool watching it dry out in real time, but this is the sped up version. I have my fabric taped to the table to keep it flat. I also put some stabilizer on my fabric, it's just quilting cotton, just to make it that little bit more robust for the pen. And this is just the way that I've done the few collage quilts that I have done. But I can also see that this would work if you did it on a fusible, the ones that have paper on the back. So basically do a reverse image and then have it draw out on the back of your actual fusible. And then you could be adding the patches to the other side or using your pattern, even cutting them out maybe and using your pattern that way. So there's like a few different ways I think you could use it for collage quilting. And obviously you could use it for things like embroidery as well, very, very easily. And this is what it looked like when it was done. So here is my pattern, or whatever you want to call it, my paint by number, fabric collage by number, what are we calling it? And unusually what I want to do, so obviously you can see it's drawn the outline as if this were just a picture. Now I did ask after the fact, of course, because I'm just trying this out. And there is a way to remove the background layer. So I wouldn't necessarily have to have this 30 showing here. However, it doesn't really matter to me because what I want to do is cut out the leaf shape. And then I will make my collage leaf with all my little bits and the little patches. And then my background is going to be a piece of fabric that I quilt separately. And then I'll put this on top and then stitch it on, and that'll be the quilting over the leaf, but the background will have like a different like lines or whatever I do for the quilting in the background. So that's what I did with my last collage quilt, and I really liked how that turned out. And it means I can use different thread colors for each of the patches and just have fun with that. So for the purposes of this, I've got my little color guide. I didn't print out the top page with the whole thing colored in because that would have used a lot of ink, but I've got this to refer to. And then I've got this with the colors, which I will roughly follow because you know what I'm like. But anyway, so 30 though is the background. So anything that says 30, I can snip away because that's just not the leaf. That's the background color, right? So I'm gonna start cutting out this outside, and then I will carefully go in and cut away the bits in between the leaves. And I'm gonna refer to this because it's easier to read the numbers on here. The little tiny ones anyway, than here. So I can see that says 30 more clearly on here. And so then I know to cut this little section out to make it the way I want it. Okay, so that's how I'm gonna work this. So this particular project that I'm making is in honor of my dad. He passed away about 10 years ago, which you'll have heard me say before if you watch the channel regularly. And he loved traveling. He took us all over. We spent a couple of years in Saudi Arabia when we were kids for one of his jobs. He lived part of the year in Mexico. And this is a Montserrat leaf. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but anyway, I'm sure you've seen it. They're very trendy, but it also is native to Mexico. So anyway, I thought it would be a good shape, something that just reminds me of him. And I put it in the pride colors because he was always also a proud gay man, and it's Pride Month, the very end of it. So I'm just getting my little pride project just in time for that. So this is me after I'd cut it all out. I've got the piece of fabric on top of a mat that's not going to get any fusible onto my pressing mat below it. And I'm just cutting out the colors for each patch. So I'm using this as an opportunity to use up bits of scraps that I already have fusible on the back. So the recommended fusible from almost anybody who does collage quilting is Steam Seam 2. And I do use some of that, but some of these fabrics had fusible on them for all sorts of different projects. So this is a great big mix of just any kind of fusible. And so I have it color coordinated, just like all my other scraps. So each time I moved down the sort of rainbow color on the leaf, I was tipping out a different bag of fabric scraps that already had fusible on them. Obviously, if you're starting from scratch with a collage quilt, probably Steam a Seam is probably your best bet. It's just easier to work with, and you can kind of move things around and they stick in place, but they're not permanent until you kind of steam it. So it's kind of cool that way. But for this one, it's just anything goes. But it did speed it up that it already had the fusible on the back, and I got to use up some of these leftovers. I got so into this process. It was so fun. I really liked being able to just look at where I needed to put the little bits. I followed most of the patches. Some of them were quite small. And And for the ones that were quite big, I didn't necessarily have a piece that big. So I just knew I needed to, for example, here, looks like almost one big yellow patch, but instead I filled it with lots of little yellow scraps. Almost like, so if you were doing this paint by number with a paintbrush, then each one of those scraps is like a brush of my brush. Is that how you would say it? Yeah. So that's the way I was kind of thinking of it. So you can do it so that it's just one big patch, or you could fill it with little bits in that color area. So this is what my leaf looked like when I was done. I was really quite happy with it. Having the whole paint by numbers pattern definitely sped the whole thing up for me. So this is the background that I quilted, also in Rainbow Bride colors. And then I just placed the leaf on top, kind of in the middle. And I used the same color thread as the fabric patch to quilt down the pieces. So I basically went around the raw edges of every single piece. So each of my fabric brush strokes, if you will, got stitched down. And then I just switched thread as I went up the leaf. So I like both processes, the quilting bit and the actual collaging bit. And I can definitely see myself making more of these. I think this particular image was one that I created using an AI program. And I think if I simplified it a bit, maybe I could start with a pattern that had less of those small patches. Obviously, the program can deal with small patches, but I think it might help if I put it in an image that was a little simpler to start off with, and then maybe build up to a few more patches inside. But all in all, I really liked this process, and I can think of lots of different applications for this. So if you can too, could you tell me in the comments, just because I might not have thought of everything I could do with this. And I'd love to hear people's thoughts on how I could use it. But yeah, so this is just the quilting. And then this is destined to be a wall hanging on my wall, so I can just look up at it, think about my dad, and remember those happy holidays and trips. And he used to like going out and sitting on a patio and having a meal and a drink in the sunlight. And so this kind of rainbow leaf really kind of encapsulates that for me. I've got several ideas for kind of personalized collage quilting sort of wall things I could do for folk for Christmas on the back of using this program. So I'm excited to experiment and try some different ideas out next. And here it is finished and hanging on my wall. I wrapped it around a wooden frame to give it some structure, and I am super pleased with it. I had so much fun. I always have fun when I'm doing these collage quilts. I don't know why I haven't done more, but I think I will be. So I hope you enjoyed watching it. All the links to the Kickstarter campaign and everything you need if you want to get one for yourself are down in the video description box. If you like scrap quilts, trying new things, and just experimenting and having a play with your fabric scraps, and you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I hope you'll consider it. Thanks so much for spending time with me. See you next time. Bye.